Good morning, everyone. I'm Michelle Fideli from First 5 Marin Children and Families Commission, and welcome to the Marin Communications Forum. Glad you were able to join us today. We have a very full agenda to talk about disaster preparedness and emergency communications in Marin, and a lot of great presenters for you today. So we're going to get started right away with okay, thank you. We're gonna be flexible and change. We're gonna begin with Brent Ainsworth from Brett. I'm sorry, not that flexible. We're gonna start with Brett McTeague from the Marin County Fire Department. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, good morning. You're going to have to excuse my voice. I've been teaching for the last 7 weeks, and I keep losing my voice because I'm in academies, and we just brought 70 seasonal firefighters on last week. So they're here for you guys. So I've lost my voice, but I'll try to go through this. So my name is Brett McTeague. I'm the EMS Battalion Chief for Marin County Fire, and I'm also the Marin County Fire Department's Public Information Officer, among many other things, other duties as assigned. But today I'm going to talk about what your fire department does in regards to communications, working with other departments within the county, and a little bit of background about our fire department, the services that we provide, and our emergency plans that are in place if we get a catastrophic wildfire. So, does that clicker work or? No, okay. So we operate 6 fire stations, starting from Throckmorton is basically our southernmost station, all the way up to Tamales. We operate a dozer, a hand crew, an emergency command center, 150 personnel, and 70 seasonal firefighters that come on in early June and go into late October. And our primary function is to make sure that we suppress all the major wildfires in the county and as well as the state. We're a CAL FIRE contract county, meaning that we don't have CAL FIRE represented in the county here to protect state lands. So our fire department is responsible for suppressing those fires in lieu of CAL FIRE being here. So what that also means is that we are tasked with responding throughout the state of California and responding to major incidents and covering other units. So our personnel could be deployed 5 engines immediately to another county and be tasked with running normal emergency calls in that other county from, Tulare to Riverside, all over the place. So that's a little bit of background on what we do. We are an all-risk service provider, so no longer do we just go to fires. Most of our calls are EMS-based, and we are tasked with all those types of services as well. We do rescue, hazmat, and then we're also the county mutual aid coordinator for any major incident. Oh, we're back up, sweet. Fantastic. Okay, so you can't really see this slide, but the yellow part here is our EMS calls. So when you look at the demographics of what we actually respond to, just shy of 60% is EMS-related calls, and that's a trend that we're seeing across the country, is that fires are really not the major incident we respond to anymore, but we have to be prepared for them. And so just 4% of our calls are fire-based, but when we do get them, they're absolutely major and catastrophic. So we want to suppress all these fires as quickly as possible. Some highlighted fires that we've had was the Angel Island fire. The last couple of years, our incident management team is deployed to Lake County for all those fires that you all remember, the Valley, the Jerusalem, the Rocky, the Clayton fire. Our management team was the first team to come in and basically start setting up the incident command system. It's basically a system to deal with emergencies and to develop a incident action plan on how to safely mitigate and put the fire out. So what do we do for communication? So we, like most departments in the county, have a bunch of different avenues of getting information out. We have our website. We do print, radio, online stuff. We do newscasting. We work very closely with all of our television companies in the Bay Area. We have highway signage, press releases, and fact sheets for incidents. And then we also are responsible for responding into the Point Reyes National Seashore. So we have close partnerships with the National Park Service for signage, for high surf advisories, fire weather watches and warnings, and things like that. And then we use social media a lot. So as you guys know, social media is really one of the best ways to get information out to people in a quick, timely manner. And we'll probably be talking that a little bit more when Brent speaks about communications for emergency incidents. But our Facebook page is updated with more of events or images that's going on in the community. Our Twitter feed is actually where we push a lot of our media because all of our incident commanders can basically tweet out what's going on with our fires, if there's evacuations in progress, anything like that, to quickly get information out to the people. And really the media uses Twitter very quickly to get information out. So they're on top of our Twitter feed right off the bat. And then we use Nextdoor as one of our avenues for getting community messaging out. We just had our live burn in San Rafael, if you guys all saw that on 101 corridor. And we burned about 30 acres back there. And we tried every way possible to get people to know that we're having a controlled burn. This is not an emergency. You don't need to call 911, but we're out there training. So this was an opportunity that we use that kind of social media to get that information out. And then so I'll just quickly touch on what we do with emergency notifications because it gets into a lot of other departments, but really we rely on multiple agencies to get information out. We really lean on other departments because it takes a team to really deal with these emergencies. So we use our Alert Marin, which is the county's notification, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later today. We have a fire information hotline. So basically, if we do get an incident, just as important it is for people to know that there's evacuations, it's just as important for them to know that they don't need to evacuate. So we want to get that message out early as we can when there's not a threat to people or homes, so we can get that information out. So we have a hotline available when we get a fire, and we update that quickly to say what's our conditions and what's going on with our incident. And then because we're a CAL FIRE management CAL FIRE contract county, we have to update Sacramento with what's going on in the county so they can post that on the state's page for all their incidents pending. So when we get major fires, this is where all on the CAL FIRE webpage, current fire information will be listed. And then in the event of a major incident, we actually activate a call center, and that same number that has our hotline with recorded information will turn over to live people where they can actually answer the phone with someone from the county that knows the area and that they can answer questions specific to the fire. And this is typically what we send out, an incident update. And you can see the diversity of calls we respond to. The cover photo on the right side up here was on the cover of the Times. So we're getting a lot of, we're getting our resources out all over the state, and they end up all over the media. And then we have campaigns too as well. So dealing with the wildland-urban interface in the county is an important thing to be thinking about for homeowners. So we like people to know that they have to have defensible space around their homes, and this is a message that we're continuously pushing out. We're out and about in the community. We're out at the fair. We like to make sure everyone knows about Wildfire Awareness Week. And then we have a bunch of partnered campaigns with Health and Human Services and the Sheriff's Department on human trafficking and anything like that. So we have a bunch of different campaigns going. Our Stop the Bleed campaign with Health and Human Services. So we do a single day where we teach CPR. And then how do we staff our public information system? Well, like I said, we rely on other departments. So, I'm not on every day. And so I rely on Doug with the Sheriff's Department to step in, or Brent with the County Administrator's Office to assist when we have a major incident. So I might be in the field, and I rely on that team that we've built within the county to get messaging out to fill in those gaps. And then the bottom right photo is a brand new firefighter, 19 years old, second day on the job, having to talk to KGO radio. So we let people get in early and start, public speaking and working with others. And it's a good message to get out that we want to get our message out of what we do and how we do it. So that's it for me, and I'll turn it over to Doug. Any questions? Yes.
I couldn't read the slide even though I'm really close. So the number for the fire line, it has a recorded message and then you switch it to a live line?
Yeah, so if our incident grows, we can switch it, immediately switch those over. Once someone's available to answer the phone call, they can actually pick it up.
What's the number?
It is, do you want to go back to that slide? Did we just lose it?
Somebody know it?
415-473-7191.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lainey. I'll turn it over to Doug. Doug Pittman with the Sheriff's Department.
Good morning, everybody, which is my clicker here. I think I'm going to wind up using about maybe 3 slides now because Brett has talked about everything and has taken my material. So we'll go with that. Which is my up and down here? Right here. Good morning. My name is Doug Pittman. I've been a member of the Sheriff's Office here for 33 years, so I've been here for a little while. Thank you very much. I have an interesting position. My primary day-to-day job is that as a patrol commander. I'm responsible for all the deputies who are driving around during the daytime, parking enforcement, cadets. If you see them in the field, I'm responsible for them. I don't take complaints. I don't even listen to them. I don't give you the time of day. No. But I have a lot of collateral duties, as all command officers do within the Sheriff's Office. I oversee our search and rescue team, the Sheriff's Posse, the marijuana eradication team, which is about to lose its livelihood, I think, pretty soon. To be honest, what we do there now is that we focus on illegal grows in the public lands and on private property and things like that. No, we're not flying over your house with helicopters and drones trying to figure out what you're doing in your backyard. We don't care. I'm also the law enforcement mutual aid coordinator for the county, so when things go wrong and we need more help, or if other counties call us, I'm the one usually responsible for trying to organize and direct law enforcement personnel, not just from the Sheriff's Office, but from every agency here in the county. Probably the most obvious situations I've been involved in have been mutual aid to that little place over across the water called Oakland and Alameda. We spend a lot of time over there, unfortunately, but we need to support them. Another job I have is the North Bay Incident Management Team. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of that. We came to fruition a few years ago as a result. Does anyone remember that little standoff that took place on the Holiday Inn Express along Highway 580? And we had to shut down 580 because, well, the bad guy was shooting out the window towards the freeway, so we thought that might be a good idea. But what happened is that event took about 19, 20 hours before it was resolved. And what happened is law enforcement here in Marin County was tapped very quickly. We exhausted them. We pulled in everybody. And as a result of that, the chiefs here in the county decided that I was supposed to write a white paper on what took place and how we were going to fix that. And what we did is, working with Deputy Chief Mark Brown and a gentleman by the name of Dave Jeffries, who's now retired as a captain from Novato, we came up with what's called the North Bay Incident Management Team. And we go around, and Matt Larson, who's in the back, is one of our silent partners on the team also. He's one of my planning and intelligence section chiefs. We get called out to a lot of different things, and I get a lot of grief from a lot of my counterparts because I spend more time in the summertime playing fireman than I do playing law enforcement officer. Well, I don't fight the fire. My truck caught on fire. That was a different story. Experienced PIO for the Sheriff's Office. Like Laney, I'm one of the lead PIOs for the county. We have teams that are set up in case we have any events that take place. And obviously, I have PIO for the Sheriff's Office itself, and sometimes even the county. But now the people like Laney have stepped in. I don't see that business anymore. Thank you very much, and Brent. No, we don't want that to happen. Training in my background, I went through a series of specialized training through the state of California. Crisis Communications, there used to be a series of 3 classes you would go through. It equates to about 3 weeks worth of training down in Southern California. I'm also a consultant for the city and county of San Francisco and their police department, where I assist them in training and media relations also. And I've also gone through the Advanced Public Information Officer program with the FBI. And hopefully I don't have to deal at that level too much anymore. Okay, so I purposely was skipping around because Brent covered all my materials. Been involved in a number of things. You might recognize some of these things from, and maybe I'll talk about social media because I only have a few minutes. We all recognize these 3 individuals? If you don't, it's from the homicide that took place in Fairfax and a homicide that took place in San Francisco, and maybe a few homicides down in Southern California that we're still looking at. Those 3 individuals were responsible for the killing of a gentleman off a trail up in Fairfax. And social media turned out to be a big play for us because, as Brett has already talked about, we use Facebook, we use Twitter, we use Nextdoor. These are our primary means of communications with the community. And what we did very quickly is, once we got information about some people who didn't fit the neighborhood, we went ahead and said, let's just go ahead and put some pictures of these individuals that we captured from some local convenience stores on TV. And immediately we started getting a lot of information, a lot of calls, which actually led to their identification eventually. I talked about Oakland. We go over there, active shooter, law enforcement functions. That's where I'm going to get involved in. I'm going to skip this. Again, Twitter, just so everyone knows, this comes up quite a bit. Myself, Brett, we use Twitter all the time because it's instantaneous communication with the media. It is our fastest way of sharing information with not only the media, but citizens here in the county and a lot of organizations right away. So when it comes to events that start to unfold, that's my first go-to. I go to Twitter and I post what's going on. And then it's game on because the media watches that solely. How many people are actually in the PIO business here or working with 1, 2, 3, that's it type of thing? Remember those things called press releases? Remember those things? Those are times of the past. We don't do that anymore. Sometimes we'll prepare one, even in EOC, as kind of memorializing what's happened over the past 12 hours or so. But the reality is, if you want to wait 12 hours to find out what we've done, we're missing the game here. And so Twitter's our number one thing. Facebook, our department, like the fire department, uses Facebook quite a bit. But there again, it's an opportunity to basically tell a story. We share things on Facebook. Keep in mind that people only go to Facebook when they want to, right? Now, I know there's probably a few of you who check it probably about once every 5 minutes. You know, just in case your friends from who knows where want to communicate with you. But we don't rely on that. Nextdoor, how many people are signed up for Nextdoor in their communities? If you don't know this already, and I'm glad you are, is that we also use that as a way of communicating with people in the community. But for us in government, shall I say, especially for the sheriff's offices and so forth, I can post things on your Nextdoor site, but you really can't get back to me unless you email me directly. Because the way it's designed is they didn't want Big Brother listening in on all the private communications between everyone in the community. So what happens is a couple things. I do get feedback, usually from people who I know or have met or have some type of relationship with. They'll come back and go, "Oh, Doug, do you know what they're saying about you on Nextdoor?" And I'm like, tell me. And as a result of that, I'm able to get back and answer some more questions. So it's not a good delivery system for us. What's also a big problem about Nextdoor? It's when you choose, it's an email, right? So if you choose to read your email, so is that an effective way to get information out during an emergency? Nope, no it's not. Instagram is something we're just now going to. And it's a little bit more complicated than Facebook or Nextdoor and so forth because it basically is where you provide videos and audio about things that are going on. We are targeting one group and one group only right now, and that's young adults. And we're trying it out with our school resource officer right now. And we're trying to see what the success is going to be as we move forward. And you're covering Alert Marin later, right? Again, all my material is stolen, so I don't want to go that far. Broadcast media, radio, and television. Yes, we still use that. Yes, that's what happens after the media get their messages via Twitter. They come out and talk to us about whatever it is that's going on. It's a great way to deliver information when things are going bad. But you got to remember, when things start to go bad, it takes us a little while to kind of get our feet on the ground. And we're going to be talking about the EOC later, about how that works. What I'd like to do is actually take a quick moment. And I want to make one comment real quick. I was really impressed by the makeup of this group here today. And I mentioned this last time I had an opportunity to speak to some people. My biggest concern when there's going to be some type of catastrophic event is that we're not going to be very good at reaching out to all the communities in the county. Or maybe what I should be saying is we're not going to be very fast at reaching out to all the communities in the county. I can personally say that I have concerns about some of the neighborhood communities in this county, but I don't speak the language. And what good am I? And so we're looking not only at my level in the sheriff's office, but in the county organization of finding better ways of reaching out to those communities. I saw a lot of names, a lot of organizations. Ask yourself, do you feel like you have a good community relationship with our agency right now? Do you feel like you could call me right away if something happened? That's something we need to fix. And I know that's something we need to reach out to. So if you belong to an organization, represents various communities, and oh, look, my wife's got a note for me. Eggs, milk? No, what does it say? Oh, recruit for SAR, okay. So getting back to as far as the groups go, if you don't feel you have a good relationship with the county, with the sheriff's office right now, and I'm not talking about, odd individual situations. I'm talking about, do you feel like if you need to contact the sheriff's office or the county Office of Emergency Service, do you have that relationship already? If you don't, get a chance, tap me on the shoulder. I'd like to give you my business card, and we'll establish some kind of communication right away. So I know who I can reach out to, who Laney can reach out to, Brett can reach out to when things start to go bad. Any questions? I know I'm taking way too much time. It's tough to put a PIO up here because I will talk all day, and I was given 3.5 minutes. So apparently 1 minute. My lovely wife, I apologize, wanted me to remember one of the things I oversee for the county is our search and rescue team. And for those of you who may not be interested in yourself in joining, it is a huge experience and learning opportunity for youth members. Our search and rescue team is unique compared to most other search and rescue teams in the entire state and across the county. We have youth members starting at age 14. And I've got some brilliant kids at the age of 14 or 15 who are just incredible at the skills they have. And it's through that program they can learn a lot about preparedness, about a lot of safety precautions you can take, and if they want to be involved in some way or another. So if they are interested in that, what they need to do, my mouth's getting dry here, sorry, is to look at us on our sheriff's website, Search and Rescue. If you think you have some kids, family members you might want to join, please invite them to learn about it, come to some of our meetings. It's a great opportunity to prepare yourself and your family.
But we'd like to increase our presence of communities of color on SAR, and so it would be great if you know anybody, any kids that would be interested to make it more diverse. Interesting.
What's the age limit? I'm sorry.
14 up. Now there is a physical test. Now this will probably turn a few of you away. All right, so part of the test and the first part is that you start. You ever hear the Dipsy run? Okay, well we also have a test where down in Mill Valley, you have to basically hike or run up to the top of Mount Tam and back, and with a backpack, because those are the kind of things that we can do sometimes. So I just want you to be aware there is a physical aspect to this whole thing. I covered that enough? And I'll take a quick opportunity. Any questions about the Sheriff's Office outreach? Specifically, is there any organization who wants to build a better relationship right now as we're talking? I see some heads nodding and so forth. Question? You're just willing to do it? Okay, let's talk later. Yes? Yes, and I know the patrol commander, so I can make that work. So ride along to see what we're all about. Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. No, you're welcome. Was there another one?
No, not a question, just that.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. All right, with that, I know there's going to be a lot more questions going later on. A lot of the slides I prepared, it sounds like we're going to beat up a little bit more. I was going to talk about Alert Marin and other ways and so forth, but we got that covered. So with that, I will turn it over to our next. Ursula. Bring water.
Bring my water, that's right. I need that clicker too. I brought my water. Everybody else too. Stay hydrated. And I need my clicker and then we're ready to go. Which one is it? It's emergency communications. Yeah, that's the one. You have to show me the clicker too. Thank you so much. It's not the big. Just, Hi, everyone. So glad you're here because we're going to really dig into preparedness now. Our first responders, aren't they amazing? And we have a great sheriff's department that I'm privileged to work with. I mean, they're pretty much 24/7. And we know that with the reassurance. And in your own communities, if you live in a city and a town jurisdiction, get to know those local first responders as well. And they do everything to be prepared to respond the way you've heard to the community members who want to know what the heck is going on. Isn't that the number one thing? The reassurance of like, we want to know what's going on, right? That's always our first thing. So they're doing a great job with that, besides responding to an actual incident. So in Marin, what kind of emergencies do we have? We have all kinds of stuff. You can see it up there. We have fire. Brett was already talking about fire. And flooding, have we had floodings? How was last winter for you? We activated our EOC Emergency Operations Center 6 times just to be on standby, and it was sort of in a partial mode, but we help coordinate, like I said earlier, what goes on in the field. And there was a lot going on in the field, but I'm not going into that right now. But throughout all of that, the communications piece that both Brett and Doug described are so critical. We have hazardous materials, we have mudslides, we have earthquakes. So the one thing is that some things, like a flood, we can sort of monitor and watch. Then there are those unpredictable things that happen just out of the blue, like an earthquake. What would you do right now? Duck, cover, and hold, right? We kind of know what to do because we pre-plan, right? And are you prepared, though? Are you really prepared if suddenly now we had a really catastrophic earthquake, something really big like a 8.9 earthquake? That would really be bad. But we have to imagine that in order to be optimally prepared personally and for our families and our community members. When there is an earthquake like that, what do you expect? You might be here, but what's going on in your home or your apartment or in the place that you work? It's going to be pretty bad. There's going to be hazardous material everywhere, right? So it's not just one event, it's a bunch of events. Earthquake is a bunch of events. What else can you expect to an earthquake? Pretty much everything. You could have power outages. Turn on that switch, there's no power. My electric hairdryer is not working. It's a crisis. My hair is still wet. Water flow disruption. It's not so bad not to have water come out of the faucet, maybe, but if your toilets don't flush, or should there be a pipe broken in your house, do you know where that wrench is? And do you know where the main shutoff is for your water? Little things like that really help you be prepared, right? Stores, businesses, banks, ATM, you want to get some cash? Not if there's a power outage. Schools, are they open? Are they closed? We have some representatives from schools here. There's a plan there, right? You have a plan. There's a plan, but it doesn't happen right away. But again, it's pre-planning that gets us through these kinds of catastrophic events that happen completely out of the blue. I always say having a plan is like having insurance, like life insurance, home insurance. If you have a plan, you have something to grab. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit further. What if you can't get gas and you want to get somewhere? What if you can't even get anywhere because of road and traffic issues? What if the air is polluted? Do you have those little masks you can put over your head, over your mouth? Put them over your head too, probably. Might be a good idea. And just general panic, right? You think there's confusion. You think everybody's panicked and at their wits' ends, like, what do I do now? So I want to talk a little bit about children in disaster, because a lot of us here either have children, grandchildren, we know children, they're part of our family, they're part of our fabric. As we have a lot of vulnerable population and fragile populations, children always come to mind for me first, for some reason, because they look, especially little children, who do they look for to tell them what to do? It's us, right, the adults. And, you know, they want to be reassured. When there is something going on, talk about it. Have a conversation. Have them ask questions and make sure you answer them. Turn off that TV, because what you see on TV is repetitive over and over again. It doesn't help the matter. Just turn the thing off and sit and talk to the children. Make a family plan. Involve the kids in that. Don't just make a plan and say, here, kids, this is the plan, right? In schools, we know that for sure, because they take it back and forth with schools. And that plan, having a plan, it really does reduce the anxiety around the whole issue. And it empowers the children. They're part of things. They're not just the recipients of being kept safe. Have a communication plan. We talked about communication. How will everybody know where everybody else is in my family? Where's my mom? Where's my dad? Because on any given day, everybody's at work, at school, or somewhere. It's a good chance that it could happen when everybody's in bed at home, safe and sound in their own home. But there's no guarantee about that. That would be ideal when you're already all together. Make the plan age appropriate. Don't talk in language that they don't understand. And make sure that the emergency contact that you develop, and we have forms for that, and I'll show you those in a little bit, and you can pick up a bunch up there. Make sure that emergency plan is with you at all times, with the kids, especially the contact information. How do I reach the loved ones that I need to reach? You can teach kids early on now to do texting. I now have a 5-year-old who texts. She texts me. It really helps. It works. The more communication there is, the better off we are. And texting, by the way, always does work. Have a grab bag and a go checklist in case of evacuation, and then have that meeting place designed in that emergency plan. Where are we going to meet? You know, if I'm coming home from school and I'm not sure where my mom is, but I'm going to go over to this neighbor's house or this spot where I know I'll save, or the shopping center, or whatever is designated, and talk about it, make sure everybody has the same information. And there's just a little bit more. I'm not going to read it to you. I'm worried about time in the presentations here. And again, it mentions Alert Marin at the bottom, and we have handouts for that. Take a look over at that table. We're going to talk about how to put some stuff together, not just a family plan. And by the way, FEMA has a really good handout, which is up there, that you should grab. So you can make a plan. All you have to do is fill in the blanks, and there you go. And take some of that information with you, or go online, and there's more stuff. Get Ready Marin is a local program that has a lot of information too, and there's some handouts there. And then take a look at like what might go into an emergency kit. We're going to take a look. Grab and go. So if you're at work, if you're here right now, where would your grab and go kit be? In your car, right? Or where else would it be? If you don't have one, you don't have one, and you're really out of luck. But you should have something in that grab-and-go kit, because you may not make it home. And, you know, just those emergency supplies that you would need. There's suggested lists, as I said, and we won't go through them right now, but then put in there everything else that you need too, because who knows you best? You know yourself best. What else do I need? Dietary things. Do I need my teddy bear? And for, you know, the family members especially too. Photos are always good, to have photos of your loved ones if you think you're going to be isolated someplace for a while. And the list goes on and on. This is just to let you know, start thinking about what would you really not want to be without? What do you really need? Your medications, your extra pair of eyeglasses, all that stuff. It's really very personal. There is a basic list. Follow that, and then add to that as you go along. Something will trigger like, oh, I need to have that. And I need that blue eyeshadow, right? Granola bars, oh, they're such fun. They get old after a while. Sanitation is a big issue. So nowadays, I was just telling somebody I worked for Red Cross many years ago. We went to places you'd never want to be, in the swamps after hurricane. And you know, the outdoor porta potties, all we had, and I aged myself, we had baby wipes. That was it. Baby wipes for everything. It was the only way we could sanitize anything we touched or wanted to touch or, you know, wipe off. We have so many more products now. So you get the picture, and the bucket is a good one to have. There's a display of one, not only to storage things in, but then when the time comes, what does that bucket come in handy for? It's an instant toilet. Don't forget those plastic liners, though, and have lots and lots of plastic products with you. They come in handy for everything, especially when we're talking sanitation. So what's in your car right now? Anybody want to tell me real quick? How many have something in their car at all? I want to see a show of hands. That's pretty good. It's very good, actually. You must have done this once or twice. Like I say, this is not your first rodeo, right? You've heard this before. It just makes common sense. It's just common sense. Have something in your car, because your car may become your home. And where are you going to be? You could be at home. You could be at a workplace, sitting around. You could be here. You could be in a dentist chair. Where else could you be? You could be in numerous places. You could be, you know, likely, hopefully, in a structured building where you still stand a chance of surviving and where there are some resources. But think about where you would be. But your car is like that critical and mobile device that may become your home, and that should have all the essentials in it. So always make sure that's updated, and even the water gets old after a while. But look at what's at your house, too, because ultimately you hope you get back to your house and your stuff is still in good shape, in a bucket and safe. Please, after we have some time, come up and look to see what those supplies are, because I don't want to take too much time. I think you get it. So many of you already have kids. All right, so The food and water thing is choose the foods you will eat. Don't have stuff that you're not going to eat. You know, don't have just the leftovers that, oh, nobody likes this top ramen, and it's 3 years old. That's not really good for you anyway. Choose food that you will eat. Require little cooking and water for obvious reasons, because water really becomes gold. It's like, so you can't buy water. You have to have lots of water. And stuff that doesn't require refrigeration, doesn't increase thirst, meets dietary needs. And that's a whole long list. Food, if you have this kind of food with a lot of canned foods, what do you need for canned foods? Yeah, not just an electric one, right? Most of us, I think, have gone back to just manual can openers. It'd be hard to open. We have lots of packaged foods, too. But water, this is the standard that's recommended. That little pint there, 1 gallon takes 8 pints. It's 8 of those things, and some of the bottled water comes in 8 pints. 1 gallon per person per day. And that's not to take a shower with. That's for your survival. Maybe a little bit of washing. If you want that, then maybe increase that. But that's minimum, and that's the recommended amount. So do you all have that at your house? Think about it. Yes, there are other sources of water, but like emptying your water, you know, your toilet water or your water heater, I guess. I've heard that, but I wouldn't even know where to begin doing that. And if you have to shelter in place, what we say when you're in your house and you can't leave, that's called sheltering in place. Again, same things. Think about all these things. Health and safety, I think, is number one. Make sure you're safe. Make sure you have the right tools so you can turn off those critical valves that need to be turned off, gas and water. Then you can have a backpack. That's your go pack, like maybe at work. I have one at work. If I have to go somewhere, I have a backpack. Because if I have to be sent off and deployed somewhere, I went to the Valley Fires this last year. And I took my go bag because it pretty much had all the stuff in there that I need and I like, including my gummy bears. So that's the sort of thing you just have to think about. Because you can't get anything like that when you're deployed somewhere or have to be somewhere where nothing is really operational. Does that make sense? All those items? And we have lists up there. And then this is kind of a goal list that it's good to have because what happens my brain quits working when something like this happens. I might have my bag and I think, well, what else do I need? And it's kind of nice just to have a checklist because I don't function at a very high level when I'm panicked. I always have to have a list. It's like a shopping list. I'm going to forget something if I don't write it down. So have a standardized list that you know if you have to leave your home, grab that list. Have that somewhere. Have that as part of your emergency plan. It's pretty much the same thing over and over again, isn't it? Varies a little bit of how much room you have, how much space you have, how much stuff you want. But again, think about this stuff. You need this. Why do you need duct tape? Anybody want to guess why we need duct tape sometimes? Pardon? Say it out loud. Okay. Say if you have to sleep in a cardboard box, I guess you could use that. For almost anything, duct tape is pretty much saves the day a lot of times. Just a good idea to have it. These are your online resources if you want to jot those down. Otherwise, that's also listed on the handouts. And please, I encourage you to take those handouts, use them, share them. We have lots more. Go online, print out thousands of them, hand them to your friends or all those that you care about, because it really will save the day, and our first responders are not going to be at your doorstep. We do have the great Get Ready program in Marin County, the online program. It gets very specific about children in emergencies, adults, older adults in emergency, aging, by age, by specifics like people with access and functional needs and disabilities of all sorts. It really walks you through step by step of how you can be better prepared, because it will save the day. We also, the Get Ready site also promotes the CERT program, which is, what does it stand for? Community Emergency Response Teams. They exist in almost every community throughout Marin County. If you have any extra time, all it takes is 2 9-hour days, 18 hours. You can be certified to be a CERT. You will be connected with others in your neighborhood and your community where you can work together as a team. They are the ancillary to our first responders, really, especially during the first critical 72 hours or so. How do we survive? Just by knowing some basics, first aid, how to respond, how to put on a tourniquet, how to maybe help people get out from under rubble, do light search and rescue. That's what these teams do, and they practice it. And just like an emergency plan for your family that needs to be practiced and talked about, CERT practices all the time with their team members in the communities. Generally, they, Brett, do you want to talk about CERT real quick? It's about, or confirm that it's through the fire divisions mostly in every community. And to be affiliated with them, and they, again, they become the ancillary support arm to those local first responders, because they can't do it all, and they're going to be somewhere else. Do you want to add on to that?
You can just turn right there and face the camera right from here.
Right from there? Yeah, so the fire department does support the CERT program. We have a number of fire departments in the county, more than you can ever imagine, actually. And we come together to actually host these week-long trainings for people that are interested in the community emergency response teams. And so we do them about once or twice a year, and we advertise on social media and Facebook and Twitter. So we're always looking to expand our CERT teams. And like Ursula said, we start out with simple things like shutting off gas lines, and then get into kind of some light search and rescue, urban search and rescue type of stuff, lifting objects in the event that we have a major earthquake or catastrophe, that we have the ability for our CERT teams to go in safely into a disaster area. And if we have a major wildland fire, they'll assist with road closures or anything like that. Standing by intersections, and because our sheriff's department will be very busy, our search and rescue teams will be very busy, and we will be using our CERT members to the full capacity in the event of a major disaster. So we invite anyone to participate, and all ability levels can participate in this program, and it is a great way for the community to be involved with disaster preparedness. So, thank you.
So it's all about being personally prepared, knowing what goes on in the county. You've heard from our first responders. Doug represents, the law enforcement piece of it. Guess what? How badly are they needed in the response to a disaster? And how critically do we look to law enforcement? What about Department of Public Works for the county? What do you think they'll be doing? They help us out a lot. They're really a big part of the first responders. For the floods, I can tell you, they were so engaged with just mudslides, road slides, houses sliding off the hills, and that house that fell apart right in the center. It split, actually, in center fell. Doug, would you like to talk about the law enforcement component and the response? How all of you are going to be all over the place and not available either?
Probably things you're not going to want to hear, but I'll tell you some truths. Right now, it is the middle of the morning, a weekday. How many law enforcement personnel total do you think are on duty right now in the county? Guess. Anybody? 30? I'm not talking just the sheriff's office. I'm talking sheriff's office, Mill Valley, Novato, San Rafael. I think Belvedere has a dog that's walking around. How many total do you think there is? About 65 total. And that includes chiefs wearing their suits, and detectives, and all the uniformed personnel. We don't have a whole lot when it comes to that, and that's why when Brett talks about the CERT team having those type of resources available is instrumental. Let me add one more thing to you. What do you think is the greatest fear, catastrophic event that could take place in this county that we fear the most? Fire. fire. And I've been to, if you ask Brett, he gives me a bad time because when we get called up to go to these fires in other counties, I wind up being the PIO for the fire department up there, and Brett actually has to do his job as a firefighter. You know, every so often you guys have to do that, I know that kind of thing. But that is the greatest fear that we have in this county, that a wildland fire will take place. We actually have a model that we use for training for law enforcement that we put together a few years ago, which shows a fire started by just a lightning strike up near the Kent Woodlands up on Mount Tamalpais. And within a few hours, that under the right conditions, red flag conditions, we've all heard that. Tomorrow's a red flag day, look out. Be aware of those things because we have a model that was a scientific model that was put together that showed when a lightning strike occurred, that fire would have rolled all the way down and taken out Mill Valley before the end of the day. Those are kind of things you need to be fearful of. Yes, you have the earthquake, and that's going to be a nightmare of an event. So let's paint the picture of what that's really going to look like during an earthquake. This just in. I feel like I'm at home. This is great. Typical things. Okay. With that being said, the reason I bring up the number of law enforcement that's involved, our key thing at first is trying to establish some type of order when it takes place. Now, do you guys realize also, we're talking about the wildland fires, if a fire breaks out, who's responsible for evacuations? Law enforcement. Why? Because fire is going to be responsible for trying to put out the fire. And so the better organized you are in your community as far as how that's going to take place, especially when it comes to evacuations, the better. Now, I've had a lot of communities come to me and go, Doug, we're going to get on top of this, and we want to put together an evacuation plan. And I stop them right there, and I go, you can't put together an evacuation plan. That is impossible. You cannot do that because a wildland fire is a living event. And there's no way to determine where that fire is going to start, where it's going to want to go, and so forth. So if you play sports, we refer to as calling audibles. You know, we immediately have to start looking at, based on information, if this were to be taking place, I'd be reaching out to Brett and the firefighters at Woodacre and so forth, give me, what does this look like? Where is it going? Where is the threat? That's the information we're going to be pushing out to the community as far as what we're being told. So there is no one plan. And I'll add a little humor to you. I met with the Kent Woodlands Association one time, and they wanted to know what the plan was going to be. And then at the same time, Mill Valley was hosting a certain type of, up in Cascade Canyon, if you know where that is in Mill Valley. And we compared what our evacuation plan was. And someone in their great thinking figured out, no problem, if the fire breaks out, we're going to go up over the fire road and down into where? The Kent Woodlands. But that's okay, because Kent Woodlands had a plan too. Oh, if the fire breaks out, we're going to go up over the fire break, and we're going to come down to Mill Valley. So the reality is what we just set these people up is for failure. They're all going to meet at the top, and who knows what's going to happen when the fire gets to them. I'll put it nicely like that. Yes, law enforcement is going to be tasked in this county. And if something like that happens, I mentioned I'm the mutual aid coordinator, I know immediately I'm going to be calling in for additional resources, just as the fire department does when the fire breaks out. I mean, you've seen all these big, you know, what we refer to as the campaign fires that took place over the last few years up in Lake County. Did you read all the fire trucks? They're all from all over the state, all over the state. Same thing's going to happen in this county, whether it's a wildland fire or if it's an earthquake or whatever. We know we don't have the sufficient number of law enforcement personnel in the county to deal with the problem ourselves, and we're going to be calling for help from other areas to come help us out. Now, it's going to take a while for that to happen. So it's going to be very slim for the first few hours, to be very honest with you. Ursula brings up some good tips about preparedness. If you really aren't prepared, like, I'm not going to go through all that, it's never going to happen, and so forth. Trust me, I met the people up in Lake County during the Valley Fire and Lower Lake Fire who did nothing to prepare. And now they are literally lining up my door of my truck as I'm sitting there. What do we do? Where can I get water? Because they had taken no steps to prepare themselves. Now, that's going to happen to some extent because someone's going to be caught off guard. But please, take the words of advice that Ursula offered a little while ago in regards to preparedness. Prepare yourself, prepare your family. You know, and that infamous thing of trying to identify someplace out of this county that you can go to meet up with your family is even more important. We have very little places here in the county to try to put safety zones together. What's a safety zone? It's a place where we, in public safety, fire and law, are going to say, hey, look, the fire's up here, but right now, why don't you guys all gather down at the Strawberry Shopping Center in Mill Valley? That's going to be the best place for you guys to all to gather. Those are the kind of messages I want you to keep your ears open to when things like this happen. Again, law enforcement is going to be tapped. Fire is going to be tapped right away. And it's going to take a few hours before we get some sufficient number of people to come and really help and coordinate and address the problem at hand. Cut. Cut. Where am I going now, Michelle?
That's the whole reason you need to be prepared, because Doug's not going to come and rescue you.
Thank you, Doug, and thank you, Brett. We're going to continue on, but I just wanted to mention, since we were talking so much about the plans and the kits, if you've looked in your folder, I did print out for you lots of lists on the right and as much as I could get in Espanol on the left, and we'll get to that a bit later. Right now, we want to talk about emergency communications, and we have Brent Ainsworth from the County of Marin.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to first mention that Ursula's slide about water, something jumped out at me on that one slide. Did anybody else notice? The can of beer? Hey, if you don't have water, that was a Foster's Lager. I think, again, the speakers ahead of me did a great job with visuals. You're stuck with this visual right here for the next few minutes. I'll review real quickly what my role with the county is. I work in the county administrator's office, and Laney, Laney is the supervisor in our division. It's a 2-person division plus an intern. Yay. We are there to assist our 22 county departments with public outreach, and that does factor in emergency outreach. Brett and I worked last week to notify the public and the media about the controlled burns that he mentioned that took place right here at the St. Vincent's property. And I used Nextdoor and Facebook posts and even letting the media know with a media advisory that was going to happen. Again, to reduce the number of calls that our dispatchers are going to get thinking that it's a real fire. So that was an example of the teamwork that we have going on. On any given day, Laney and I might be helping the health department, the public works department, the public defender, any of those 22 departments. When a disaster happens, you would think your very first thought is taking care of yourself, taking care of your family. If you're at work, taking care of your coworkers. There's the first minutes after a disaster. I'm thinking of earthquake in my head right now. If that were to happen, you're watching out for yourself first, and if you survive, then I would hope that you're the kind of person that will want to be helping others, not be a victim, but be an aid worker. Turn yourself into an aid worker. I know that every county employee is a disaster service worker. Isn't that right, Tom Jordan? Where's Tom Jordan? You get hired by the county. You take a vow to become a disaster service worker in the event of something catastrophic. But who do you turn to in the aftermath for information? That's my question to you, is think about how you're going to start to inform yourself about what just happened or what to do next. The first thing, I'm thinking for primarily of 3 sources, 3 trusted sources. Traditional media is still out there as a trusted source while it's still with us. And then we have social media, not quite as trusted. We'll go over that in a few minutes. Then you have the government. The government is probably the entity that people are going to be turning to the most for help, as well as nonprofit agencies, Red Cross and organizations like that. Let's talk about the traditional media for a minute. We in Marin County, even though we have awesome proximity to San Francisco and Oakland and San Jose, we don't get much attention to us unless something bad happens, right? If we had a wildland fire that was eating up forest land in West Marin, we'd get a lot of attention by the media. if the earthquake strikes, and it's a 11.6, it's going to be affecting the region and not just Marin. It's going to be hard for the media to be giving Marin County specific information about what to do in Marin County or what happened in Marin County if the bigger cities are affected as well. How are you going to get trusted information there? You really want to make sure that you are staying informed so that you are able to assist others. KCBS radio is one I turn to a lot for breaking news. KQED, public radio, will turn into a full-time news station if it has to. In West Marin, what's our favorite radio station in West Marin? KWMR. The network TV stations as well. Again, if it's a regional catastrophe, we probably won't be able to turn to a lot of those for information about our neighborhoods here. The print media I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, because the weekly papers have a full-time staff that is microscopic compared to what they used to have. You won't be turning, if you live in Tiburon, to the Tiburon Arc for breaking news, most likely. Point Raised Light, they'll do what they can with their staff. The Marin IJ is our daily paper of record. That's where I worked for 13 years before I got into this line of work. They have a staff that is about 1/3 of what they used to have in the heyday, in the 80s and 90s. When I got to the Marin IJ in 1996, we had 64 journalists working in the newsroom, and today there are 19. So if you think about disaster coverage, they'll do the best they can. They want to be the source for trusted information, but their ability to be everything for everybody and provide information is going to be probably less than you think. Then there's social media. Certainly we've gone to, in our previous speakers, kind of giving a list of all the different varieties of social media. And some of those are more useful than others. Some of those are more trusted than others. If anybody can post anything on a social media network, then there's going to be a certain percentage that is going to be rumor-based rather than fact-based. So we just have to remember, you have to check your sources. You have to make sure it's like, am I going to trust that person to tell me what's actually happening, or should I? It's like, maybe I should wait and hear what the town of Fairfax says rather than what my neighbor says. It could be that your neighbor is getting really good information about the disaster, and that could be very helpful. But certainly there are cases out there where rumor just takes over, and a lot of people get misled, and that can lead to danger, actually, if you're getting bad information and people are believing it. So that's why I want to get back to government being a trusted source of news. Whether you live in a town or city or unincorporated Marin, or even up, we've got friends here from the north of us, you think about whether you trust getting information from your government, your local government. Do you trust whether it's the town of the city of Mill Valley? Are they good communicators? They actually do a very good job with their communication. City of Novato, where I live, they've done a much better job than they used to as far as providing information, including emergency information. I know that I signed up for so many alerts on this phone, whether it's a temporary street blockage in San Anselmo, which I got a few minutes ago, or whether it's a broken gas line or something like that. I've signed up for all sorts of alerts, so I stay updated in case it's something that I might be doing messaging about through one of our departments. So the county's role is a vital one. It can be a life-saving role in terms of communications. Certainly Brett's team, Doug's team, and Public Works and many of our county government departments are out actually doing life-saving roles. But the communication also should be thought of as a life-saving role. Alert Marin is what I want to talk about next. Now, this is something that's been around for, Ursula, how many years have we had Alert Marin? 6 or 7 years. If you please write down alertmarin.org and get back to it later. I think this is a system where, if you probably know that if you, landlines are kind of dying. If you still have a landline, hang in there. I've kept mine, but a lot of people are just using their cell phones these days. Well, for emergency notifications, your landline, the landline that you might still have, there might be an alert notification coming automatically, a robotic voice going out to your landline, but unless you sign up for Alert Marin, you wouldn't get it on your cell phone. So this is a very important thing to remember, that you can, if you're 18 and older, if you live in Marin, if you work in Marin, or you just go to school in Marin, you can go to alertmarin.org and register your cell or your email address to stay updated for, yeah, you've got a question? Go ahead.
I know this is hard, but I feel like why only 18 is older? It could be accessible to teenagers, especially since a lot of teenagers do lie, and it might be good. Why only 18?
So the question was whether it should be available for people younger than 18. I don't know if Ursula can answer that, or, but I know that the main thing that we're trying to get across is that adults, those over 18, can be the way we have to trust that they will then notify the younger kids. It might not be that you want a 14-year-old getting emergency notifications. There might be a little bit of a freak out if they interpret it wrong. You can sign up your child. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Why don't you come grab this again, if you can make it.
I just want to point out one thing. We're talking about social media, right? What does that require to use social media? You have to have access to computers, right? Now, there are some communities in this county that people do not have access to computers and so forth. So I want you to be aware of what the backup system is going to be when something like that happens. It will be in play in any major catastrophic event. And what it would be is that initially, obviously, we're going to push things out through social media, but we know because we're going to miss most of our audience, a lot of our audience in doing so, we will actually set up places throughout the county where we'll have assistant PIOs actually be responsible for going out to the community, putting themselves there. We'll be communicating with them, and they will be there to answer questions. They will be there to disseminate information. It's going to be a little bit behind the curve compared to our initial response of the Twitter and Facebook and everything else, Alert Marin, but we will back it up for those people in the community who don't have computer access by having people physically out at different locations throughout the county. I just wanted to make that known in case I run into this in West Marin. For some reason, it's a little difficult to get the computers to work out there. And I get a lot, talk about traditional media and so forth. I mean, there are some media outlets still that get mad at me today because I'm not reaching out to them first. And to be honest, my first reach out is through Twitter and social media, and already they're behind the curve. But we know if something happens here in the county, we will be setting up locations of where PIOs from the county representing cities and towns and so forth will be making themselves available to answer questions for the community. This has actually been very, very successful in the fire campaigns that we've had, thankfully, outside of this county, because a lot of people up in the rural counties such as Lake County, they didn't have social media either, or access to it, and we had to be out there at the fairground. We had to be out there at a 7-Eleven. We had to be out there at a school. But that's what drove to success as far as sharing information. I just want to get that inject in there for those communities that might not have that access.
I appreciate your inject.
So can we go back to the 18 or older?
Yeah.
Mr. Reacher, and it's in your handouts too. You can sign up for anybody under 18 in your family or a friend, and you can sign them up with, if they really want to be alerted. So, we encourage that, of course, and then it's a decision case by case. But yeah, you can sign up, several of your family members up to numerous number of cell phones.
I think it's 4.
Speaking for law enforcement,
I think it's 4.
actively enforcing whatever this is. So, I mean, it's like, hey, I heard you had a 17-year-old get on the internet. We're not. I'm sorry. Thank you. So just so you know, the better thing is to get on. I hate to go against what our own county has put together here, but trust me, the sheriff's office isn't come knocking at your door because your 17-year-old wanted to be informed. Trust me.
Good point, good point. I think it's up to 4, once you log into Alert Marin, you can add 4 phone numbers to it. And that can, right, yeah. You have 8 or 6 kids, yeah. Yes, you may list up to 5 email addresses per profile as well. And your profile may contain up to 2 text devices, 2 email addresses, even a TTY device, and 4 personal phone numbers. So the types of messaging that you could get from Alert Marin would be, sometimes it's not quite as it's not a disaster, it's not the sky is falling, it's just an important road is going to be closed because of a washout or something like that, or even a crash. And there might be an Alert Marin that goes out over something that's not it's not something that you are in danger about, but it's just we want to communicate that to you. Evacuations, we have occasionally, let's just say, worst case scenario, we have a bad guy with a gun. You might be getting an Alert Marin note about shelter in place or something like that. Post-disaster, you might have information about shelters, transportations, or supplies. Very useful tool. I think everybody in this room, if you can, register for it. If you live in another county, check to see if you have the same thing up in your county. I'd like to talk a little bit more about Nextdoor because it's kind of taken over the social media in terms of trading information between neighbors and neighborhoods. There are more than 85,000 Nextdoor accounts in Marin County. And if you think about the total population of 260,000, and you take away those who probably aren't on social media, those under 10 or 12 years old, those over 95 or whatever, that's a very high percentage. And people are trading information whether it's trusted or not. And we have access to get messaging out from the county of Marin to any Nextdoor neighborhood. I think there's 70 or 80 Nextdoor neighborhoods in Marin County. And I can post, for instance, the control burn. I posted that notice about the control burn from southern Nevada all the way down into Santa Venetia, so that people knew that was happening, in case they didn't hear it from the traditional media. Nixle, N-I-X-L-E, is another source for you. If you want to create an account, a login, a password, you can sign up and get notifications from, let's say, the Novato Fire Protection District, let's say Central Marin Police Authority. That's another way. Many law enforcement agencies, many fire agencies they offer Nixle messaging as well. That's in addition to Alert Marin. I'm going to wrap up in a minute. I just wanted to let you know about the Emergency Operations Center that we will activate when we need to at the Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office is right here in Terra Linda. Big building with a bunch of antennas on top. You probably noticed that before. Doug's home away from, actually not really home away from home because he's all over the place. But that's where people working for the government will congregate in case of emergency to aid our other municipalities in Marin County. If there's a disaster of a large scale, the town of Fairfax decides it needs help, or San Anselmo, or anywhere, we will activate our Emergency Operations Center, EOC, and trained people will come in and be the source of information for the media and the source of information for the public through social media as well. And we had to do that 6 times over the storms in January and February, I can't remember, last winter, December through. And we got a lot of positive responses from the media as far as being helpful, delivering messages. The last note I'd like to say about traditional media is they have a huge audience, more than a government agency website, right? We need them to convey our messages for us in the event of a disaster. We need them to get the message out through their interpretation. We hope that they get accurate information from us. They might be doing interviews with people out in the community as well. But they have a large audience, and we need to make sure we remember that. So they are a really important facet of the communications during a disaster. Jim, you had a question?
I encourage you to invite your team down to Marin TV, because that's our TV in case of emergency. And you can get that on your phone, so you guys can have a really powerful tool.
Right.
And I invite anybody in here who's still in school to come down and look what we can do. But as a team, you have a great tool right here in town.
So Jim's talking about our public access TV station in Marin County called CMCM, Community Media Center of Marin. 3 channels. Right. And during disaster messaging, certainly that might be the way that we're staging a press conference or something like that, in addition to whatever the media covers. They are located downtown San Rafael. If you live in Novato, there's Novato Community Television, NCTV. I happen to be working on the board of directors for them. But CMCM covers the rest of the county. There are the government channels 27, 29, and 30, I think, on Comcast. So I can wrap up, or you? Another question.
I was curious, the next door network that you can contact.
Yeah.
Are we able, like, Kaiser have some information that you can get out to all the communities? Contact you and you put it out?
So it used to be when Nextdoor started, it was for neighbors talking to neighbors. It was only for residents, and you had to prove that you were a neighbor in a neighborhood in order to join. About 3 years ago, they changed that so that public agencies, such as governments, towns, cities, counties, could create accounts and do messaging. I know that they are starting to allow special districts to do messaging. Leslie, do you have access at Novato's public school? Yeah, they are not. They're doing a rollout, and they want to grow, but it's not every single nonprofit. They're not opening it up to nonprofits yet. But if you're part of a public agency, a government agency, I would email agencies@nextdoor.com and ask them that question. I know the county of Marin. That's against our policy. We only want to get messaging out from our own 22 departments.
Actually, it depends, though. If it's part of an emergency situation and we are part of the joint information system, then you would communicate that to whoever is doing public information for that event, and then we would be sharing that information as part of the response to the emergency, not as representatives of Kaiser. But if all the hospitals are full and Kaiser is at capacity and people need to go to a different hospital, then that's the kind of information that they would want to know.
Yeah, we would be reaching out to Kaiser and Sutter and all the local hospitals nearby to get a feel from them also.
Yes, the can.
We had a couple exercises to try to test that. The problem we run into is not only do we have turnover, but there seems to be a heck of a lot of turnover in hospitals. The PIOs never seem to be the same person for more than a week or two.
Yeah, Doug was just saying that law enforcement would definitely be reaching out to those agencies and trying to help with communications in general. Thanks a lot. Oh,
Hi, sorry, I just wanted to add something. So I'm Kristen Sedavakin, Program Manager for Public Health Preparedness. We have a healthcare preparedness program, and through that we have in the past done PIO workshops with the healthcare facilities and the county, and we're going to be doing that again this fall, I think in September. So Lainey is going to be helping us with that. I just wanted to throw that out there. So yes, what CEO said was right on. We'll have a joint information system, and we'll want to be sharing appropriate, accurate information.
Thank you. So in terms of communications, obviously, there's a number of challenges. One, trying to contact every person in the county, and then 2, 3, and 4, trying to contact specific groups that have their own challenges in reaching or have their own specific needs in an emergency. So there's issues with children, and we're going to be talking about that in a little bit, about notifications at schools and preschools and childcare. But there are also senior citizens or the disabled or those who are hard of hearing or blind. And many of us who work for organizations that serve the public will have a duty to take that information that you get from the county sources and then distribute it to those that we serve. One of the specific difficulties is going to be reaching those who speak a different language, particularly Spanish, but there are obviously multiple languages spoken in Marin. But in terms of Spanish speakers, we know that the Latino population is about 16% of the population in Marin right now. By 2050, it's estimated to be 25% of the population. So we've got a big challenge ahead of us and a big challenge today to prepare ourselves and to get that information to our clients, our community partners, and those that we serve. So we want to continue now and hear from the Canal Disaster Preparedness Council. Cesar Lopez from Canal Alliance is here, and Douglas Mundo from the Canal Welcome Center to talk to us about Spanish language outreach.
Good morning, everybody. Could you please stand up? Thank you. Can you just say, ah? Great. Fantastic. Thank you. Despacito. Yeah, it's going to be next one. So my name is Douglas Mundo. I'm on many hats. I work in the community. I'm representing Short Up Marin and the Canal Emergency Preparedness Council today. And with me, my colleague and friend, Cesar Lopez from Canal Alliance. So reaching out the Latino community is not easy. You know, for those who think that, you know, just sending a flyer and an informational sheet with a lot of stuff, people will get it. It doesn't work that way. And it requires a lot of energy, a lot of one-on-one. It requires a lot of relationship building with the community and really understanding what the community best practices are to really get the community engaged in some of these type of emergency situations or emergency preparedness. So over the last 3 years, I will say almost 4 years now, we have been working with Short Up Marin in the canal in Marin City. But before I move forward into that, let me tell you what Short Up Marin is about. It's a multiracial environmental justice coalition advocating for equitable and inclusive solutions for emergency preparedness and response, flooding prevention and hazard mitigation, sea level rise and climate change adaptation, water, air and soil quality, and social equity. This is who we are, but at the same time, one of the main interests in our community has been trying to figure out how can we respond to the emergency needs that we have in our communities. And we found in the process working with our community, especially Marin City and the Canal, and I'm glad to see some colleagues from Marin City here as well, that there were many issues, especially when it comes to sea level rise, when it comes to, emergency preparedness. When we put together a community forum, one in Marin City, one in the Canal, we found that there was not an emergency preparedness plan in either of these communities. That was kind of shocking for me. So what we took as a commitment was from the Canal in Marin City and through the efforts that we put together with Short Up Marin was, what can we do to support our own communities? How can we become a resource instead of a victim in case of an emergency. And that's how we started working. And we thought that the best strategy will be working with the community, providing information, educating people about what climate change is about, what sea level rise is about, and all these things that could create impact our communities. For instance, if you see those pictures right there, just imagine what will be the result of sea level rise, king tides, big storms, and you can add other things. And these are the images from our communities that you have seen through media, what is happening already. So we got a big issue. This is not a nice thing. Before we were putting a beautiful picture on our website about Marin County, and someone told us, but why are you putting something beautiful when something that needs to be changed? And they say, go back and really tell the story of what's going on. And look, these are the images from Marin City, that area in the southern Marin, but also Navarro. You will see Navarro and other areas in Marin County. So it's really hard. And it's a huge issue. And the canal and Marin City are not susceptible to those issues. So every time 101 is shut down, impact the entire community in the North Bay. And I will say, probably the impact is going to be in the Bay Area as well. So we have to be careful and figure out how to work together. And especially we have been trying to build effective communication and collaboration between government and community, because I think that has been kind of the disconnection at some point. And as a community, we want to say, we are eager. We are eager to participate. We want to collaborate with all of you who are in this room today. And we are trying to figure out what can we do. And that's how we came together and we create the Canal Emergency Preparedness Council. And the Canal Emergency Preparedness Council is created by, it's composed from community leaders, organizations, faith groups, businesses, and even government representatives. And we have been meeting, and for the first time, a couple of weeks ago, we present the first ever emergency preparedness plan for the canal and for Marin City. So that's a big accomplishment for us. And now we have been training people, creating support and developing leadership and creating, I would say, CERT training. We have been working with CERT, and we have trained over 25 residents between Marin City and the canal. And now we are discussing other issues that are affecting our communities, which are impacting, the life, and the well-being of our residents. So what we are doing in the canal for now, in communication and education to the people, we have been doing educational campaigns, like for instance, during the El Nino, I would say during the El Nino, how do we call it, season, if you're gonna call it season, we did some education in the community. What is El Nino about? But at the same time, we did an assessment, and we tried to get as much information as we could from the community. For instance, are you prepared in case of an emergency? Do you have water 4, 5, 7 days? Do you have seniors, people with disability that will require some special assistance in case of an emergency? That kind of questions. So, I want to thank you, especially the Marin Community Foundation, the San Francisco Foundation, and the local government who has been supporting us in these efforts. And currently, we have been able to create not only the Preparedness Council, but also the plans, the emergency plans, and we have been able to create some efforts with the youth. So before we watch a video, I want to give the opportunity to my colleague Cesar, who represents Canal Alliance, because as part of this council, we have brought as many nonprofit organizations and groups and institutions in the community, and we are doing more efforts to bring schools, to bring faith organizations, businesses, to really be part of this collective effort in the community. So Cesar will share what Canal Alliance is doing in preparation in case of an emergency in the canal.
Gracias, Douglas. Good morning, buenos dias to all of you. My name is Cesar Lopez, and I'm representing the Canal Alliance. As you all know, we've been in the community for more than 36 years, and we have had an organization plan in place thanks to the partnership with the MCF and the San Francisco Foundation. But at the same time, a few months ago, Douglas came and asked me to join Sheriff Marin and the Disaster Preparedness Council for the Canal area, and I totally say yes because it is really needed. And as he said, there wasn't any plans, there was nothing in the area before for the entire community. So now, for the first time, we have the first plan that we're gonna be doing some outreach in the following months and get the people of the Canal neighborhood ready and also the people at the Marin City too. But I just wanted to add that Canal Alliance is ready in case an emergency or a disaster happens. We're gonna be focusing in two main things that I think are really important for the community and for the neighborhood, which is we're going to be providing food and communications for the residents. Since we already distribute food, we have a food distributions on Tuesdays. So we have the food, we have the plans with the people that provide the food for us, which is the Food Bank of Marin. And also we have a room that is already prepared with computers, laptops, radios, walkie-talkies, electric or gas generators in case we don't have electricity. So they're gonna be ready. If a member of the community wants to get in touch with his family or communicate, basically we're ready to do that, and we're gonna be providing that service also for the Sheriff Marin. So basically that's all that we gotta say at this point. And as I say, as being on the heart of the canal, we're gonna be conducting in the few months outreach to the community so they can get prepared and be ready for if an emergency strikes. Thanks so much. Gracias.
So before we conclude, we want to show you a brief video that was created with the youth. So we have been engaging the youth as well, bilingual, bicultural, and helping us document what's going on in our neighborhood. And we put together, in collaboration with the County of Marin and other, the Canal Welcome Center, Short Marin, and a group of residents in Coravai, we put together this video that is called Youth Exploring Sea Level Rise Sciences. So we'll give you a picture of what's going on in our neighborhood, and also it will tell you a little bit about what is behind. It's going to be a brief video, and with that, we will conclude our presentation. I hope that if you may have some questions, probably will be a Q&A section later. With that, thank you so much for allowing us to present today. And I hope that you will be able to go and check our website, and hopefully system is going to work.
Thanks to Sia for being my AV technician.
The Canal District of San Rafael is home to many new immigrants looking to build a good life along the shores of the San Francisco Bay. However, much like coastal residents all around the U.S., many in the canal are unaware of their long-term risk of flooding and sea level rise.
It is susceptible to flooding. We've had some strong storms in the past where the fields out here have gotten flooded, and you know, it's sometimes a little too close for comfort for me.
The area is already put at a disadvantage because it's located near the water.
Many immigrants are in this neighborhood, and many low-income residents, and also very small, marginally surviving businesses, auto shops, small industry. They're all in this neighborhood, so it's a very impacted neighborhood economically. At the same time, that it is really one of the most susceptible neighborhoods in the North Bay to sea level rise.
We used to be right here, what you don't know you can see. You'd be able to see the bay a long time ago. The water used to come up on a 7-foot tide on Belvedere Street, right here. This is 1983. 33 years ago, can we imagine what's going to happen when the tide goes up even higher?
This beautiful place we call home has a number of risks. Everyone knows about the risk of earthquakes, but we are also at risk of sea level rise. Our shoreline areas are protected by a mix of great infrastructure, like the seawalls and levees shown in this picture.
There's quite a bit that's already at risk. A lot of our shorelines are already at risk. We have a lot of natural resources, wetlands, parks, public access that are all threatened by sea level rise.
There's the level of traffic driving through all that, but then there's also the impact on the neighborhoods and the people living there, and then what kind of preventative measures can be happening.
It's going to be worse during flood times, and it will definitely impact the Bay Area, and it will definitely impact downtown Centerville and the neighborhood we're in, the Canal District, and the wetlands that are right around here in the canal.
What happens when walls and levees fail? Great infrastructure protects us, but also makes us vulnerable. Hurricane Katrina showed us what can happen when communities are not prepared.
We're very far down the road where carbon is in our air and it's causing a global warming effect that is melting our ice caps.
Climate change is one of, if not the most extreme priorities. The challenge with it is that on any given day it doesn't feel like the most urgent because it's unfolding, kind of gradually. However, it's by almost any analysis, if we're honest about it, the most important because the impacts are so extreme to everything, to our environment, to our public health, to our economy, if we don't step up and do something.
I think having face-to-face conversations is really, really important. When you talk about an enormous, complex issue like sea level rise, it's hard for people to get their minds around it. But if you say, hey, this is my experience. I live in a neighborhood that's going to be affected, and this is why it concerns me, that's really impactful. As humans, that's part of the human experience of having a conversation.
Well, Marin County is doing quite a bit. I actually work on a program called Baywave, which stands for the Bay Waterfront Adaptation Vulnerability Evaluation. And what we're doing is a vulnerability assessment for all of the bay shore of Marin. And what we're trying to do is assess how vulnerable the county is. So what we're hoping to do is begin the conversation with all the communities, with the decision makers at the cities and the towns about what happens, what's there now, how will it change if they're impacted by either temporary or permanent flooding, and then really trying to bring all those people together to think about how they want to plan for the future.
The city of San Rafael has a program to help people become disaster ready, and it's called the CERT program. And I mention that even though it's disaster preparedness, it gets people to start thinking about what is my role and what can I do to protect me and my family. And so I would encourage people to sign up for that because they both learn about the issues and they learn about how they can be self-empowered.
I know people have to prioritize, there's only so much they can do, but that is going to affect all of us, and especially our young people. They have to learn about it and be active and sooner than later.
As young people, I believe that the steps that you can take in combating sea level rise would be getting that education, making sure you know who is in support and who isn't, and who is unaware.
We are not powerless. That's where the hope is by youth involvement. And people should be asking for a lot because we are very much at risk as a society, as a world right now because of sea level rise.
When you come together and start speaking out and start organizing and start influencing votes
You have incredible power. You've got a very direct stake in this democracy and in the decisions that we make affecting your generation. And I think just sort of stepping up and seizing that is the most important thing.
Low-lying areas like the canal have flooded before during big storms and even ultra-high tides. Young people will face the brunt of this problem. So we need to engage the entire community, young and old, in protecting the future for them. Talk with your families, neighbors, and elected representatives. You have a place at the decision-making table.
This is pretty much what we have been able to do. I want to thank you, the Marin Community Media Center of Marin, for the support of helping us create this video. Our founders, MCF, San Francisco Foundation, local government as well, the county of Marin, and those who participated, especially the youth, because that's where our future relies. And yes, we screwed out this work for them, so let's try to figure out what can we do to help them resolve that and have a better future for them. On behalf of the Shore at Marin, the Canal Emergency Preparedness Council, and myself and Chet, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Gracias. Does anyone have any questions specifically related to Spanish language outreach? Okay. Thank you, guys. Thanks very much. Yeah. Thank you. So now we want to continue and talk about the specific challenge of caring for our children in a disaster or emergency. So we're going to begin by talking about the California Child Care Disaster Plan with Kristen Sidavakin from Marin County HHS. And she's also, as she mentioned earlier, she's on First 5 Marin's commission. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Hello. As I've already mentioned a few times, I'm Kristen Sidavakin, Program Manager for Public Health Emergency Preparedness. What our primary mission is for my program is to strengthen the response capabilities for the healthcare system and the public health system. However, we also are concerned with community resiliency, and child care providers have been identified as one of our kind of vulnerable populations. And after a couple conversations with both Michelle and some folks over at Marin Child Care Council, oh, what just happened? I don't even think I pressed anything. See you. Thank you. Yes, sorry. Okay. So after a couple conversations, I decided that I would put on a workshop for childcare providers through MC3, Marin Child Care Council. Because we can all go and sit in on a training and just have this, someone talk to you about all the things that you should do, but then we go back to our busy lives and we don't do those things. So I tried to set up this workshop in a way that would help child care providers actually build their plans. So when I first set out to do this, I went and did some research, and I found the California Child Care Disaster Plan 2016. So that's really what I want to talk about today, is what an amazing resource this is. It was developed by UCSF California Child Care Health Program with funding from the California Department of Education. And it has 3 parts: the disaster plan, and then a step-by-step guide for child care providers, and then the emergency plan library. These are all available online in both English and Spanish. And it basically walks a provider through what they need to do. So I just put the step-by-step guide up here. As you can see, step 1, a written emergency disaster plan. So I think there are 10 steps, and what I really love about this document is it lists all of the licensing forms that are required for both family child care providers and child care centers, and it really outlines everything that you have to do. So again, I used this as a guide for my workshop. The purpose of the workshop was to provide child care providers with the knowledge and tools to establish an all-hazards emergency response plan for their program. And the objectives were to identify emergency, or at the end of the workshop, I was hoping the participants would be able to identify emergency situations that may occur in child care programs, identify roles and responsibilities that need to be considered in building an emergency response plan, identify the different types of emergency responses, and create a written emergency response plan. Why do child care providers need to plan for emergencies? To reduce injury and loss in the event of a disaster, to keep children and staff healthy and safe until they can be reunited with their families, provide child care services as soon as possible following an emergency, and support the recovery process for children, families, and staff. This really goes back to our community resiliency. Child care providers are so critical to our recovery. I have 2 children. I need to be able to respond to disasters, and I will have a lot of work with recovery after something happens. I need to know that my 2 children are safe. So the importance of child care providers in emergency response. Child care providers will need to respond as emergency managers for their child care programs. They play an important role in the dissemination of emergency preparedness, response, and recovery information to families. Children bring what they learn at school and child care to the home environment, thereby improving family resilience. Child care is an essential service for emergency response workers and necessary for a community's economic recovery. It may take hours, days, weeks, or months for a child to be reunified with their family after a disaster. Our child care providers need to know this, and they need to have a plan for how to deal with that. Needs for child care may increase after a disaster while families recover and rebuild their lives. So the workshop topics, I go into a lot of different things that were covered today, as well as some additional things. So we identify local hazards. There's an amazing website called myhazards.com. Is that right, Ursula? Yeah, we will try to bring that up later. It's amazing. You type in your address, it shows you what your hazards are, whether it's flooding, fire, obviously we all have earthquake, and then it actually tells you mitigation strategies, so things that you can do to reduce the impact of those disasters. We talk about evacuation and relocation. Child care providers are required to have at least one relocation site, but in the workshop we really talk about, have you talked to the place that you're going to go? Do they know that you're coming? Because they need to, where you're going to evacuate to and relocate to, they need to know you're coming so they can plan for you. So in this workshop, there's a template, like memorandum of understanding, that providers can bring to the places that they want to work, that they want to relocate to. We talk about family reunification. There's neat little cards that providers can write where their 2 relocation sites are and additional contact information. And they're just wallet cards that parents can keep in our wallets or purses. So if a disaster happens and we don't know where the relocation site is, we can pull that card out and know where we might be able to find our children. We also talk about the importance of training and drills. We talk about roles and responsibilities in a disaster response. Talk about local emergency services and how important it is for child care providers to connect with local law and fire and emergency services. We talk about alerting and notification. I had everyone sign up for Alert Marin and Nixle. We talk about the facilities, equipment, and emergency supplies they may need. Other communication for in a disaster, how are they going to communicate with parents? We talk about family engagement, child engagement, We talk about keeping their childcare business operating after a disaster, and then recovering from a disaster, which also includes some behavioral health support for children. I just have to put my two children up here. Mia and Caleb. So children feel safe with trusted adults and cope better in disasters when the adults around them function adequately in stressful circumstances. I think it's really, really important that we help childcare providers be prepared. There are so many things they're working on constantly. I think it's the least we can do to kind of hold their hand through this and make sure that they're prepared. So the outcomes of, I ended up doing a workshop. It was 2 hours on a Thursday night. 40 providers ended up showing up. And the outcomes were they wanted more workshops. They want a full day workshop or a series of 3 to 4 sessions. More partners. I identified that, because I kind of threw this together quickly, but I identified really the importance of bringing more people into this, bringing more subject matter experts into it. I've already talked with Doug about being on my committee. I'm starting a committee with some local providers, MC3, First 5, hopefully fire and law, and many other people that can really help improve the workshop. Improved workshop. So we're just going to work on it to identify additional things that will help childcare providers. Something that I have my two children, one is in a family child care home and one is in a center. The family child care home, the woman who runs it is amazing and so into emergency preparedness, and she was talking with her kind of coach from MC3 and Michelle Tyler, and she was saying that it's such a good idea to have like a spray bottle and you just spray water and it's like you pretend it's like magical fairy dust, and it helps kids feel better. And so it's these little things that I would not think about, because even though I have 2 kids, I'm not that creative. I don't work with kids all day. So having these other subject matter experts in it to really offer additional suggestions on how to make it easier on the kids, I think is really important. So that is really all I have. Is there anything else you wanted me to talk about? Okay, I'm sorry. So we are going to start hopefully doing this annually. We're planning a workshop for September. And we're also planning on doing, developing some sort of refresher course for people who've already been through the full course. Just a little reminder of what they should be doing, and hopefully building in some additional support for the providers.
And we'll share the dates when you schedule it.
And we will share the dates.
The website for the California Child Care Disaster Plan 2016, your website for it?
Right here. Is that on your resource list?
I'm actually comment on that.
Yeah.
I'm Jody from MC3.
Oh, great.
And we actually have like 300 and some of these for all of the licensed providers in Marin. They just came. Awesome. So, Miss Sister Joan, yes, you can actually take this and I'll cross your name off the list. But all of the licensed programs that are family child care and center-based programs will have one of these actually hard copies, so they can bring it back to their workshops with you.
Great. Thank you so much.
If there's an evacuation, how are the daycare providers or the child care providers getting the kids out?
Well, it's kind of a big question. I can't really answer that. So every provider has to make their own plan, and every center looks different. Every center has a number of staff, different types of children with different needs. So every provider needs to make their own plan. Again, it goes back to, identifying your places, how you're going to get out of the house, how you're going to get all the kids out of the house, how you're going to get them safely to your relocation site. And these are all things that we talk about. But the reason I really want to bring in some more first responders is because I want the providers to know that it's important for them to know the local first responders in their community, so they can share what their plans are and they can be better prepared to support the child care providers in being safe. Because local responders may not always know where these providers are. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there are 400 family childcare providers?
Well, so there's like around 170 family childcare.
Oh, okay.
And we, as Marin Childcare Council, who has a relationship with licensing, we're not allowed to release the addresses of small family childcare homes. It's against the law. So our local fire responders and other emergency responders don't know where those homes are. They're licensed for up to 8 children. So we really encourage those providers to let their local first responders know, but that comes with its issues too.
Yeah, exactly. There any other questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Kristen. Now I'm pleased to welcome Mike Grant from the Marin County Office of Education to talk to us about preparedness in schools. And obviously, that alone could be a day-long, if not a week-long or semester-long course. But you're going to get the crash course, but just a summary, and we're just trying to give everyone a picture of how preparedness is happening in these different sectors. So, thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Michelle and First Five, for the opportunity. My name is Mike Grant. I work at the Marin County Office of Education. And what I want to say is that I'm not going to take a whole day to give you an orientation. I'm going to try to make it succinct. But to say that our superintendent, Mary Jane Burke, and our Board of Education takes the safety and well-being of students as our highest priority. So a big part of that, obviously, is doing everything we can to support emergency preparedness in all of our schools. And just like child care providers, ultimately it's every district, every school creates, practices, develops, and implements their own plan. And so what we do is we host the Marin Schools Emergency Preparedness Council, which gathers 5 times a year. It's this, during the school year, and Ursula, the Marin County Sheriff's Office, Red Cross is part of that council, and we just share best practices. We go over what schools are doing to help support preparedness in our schools, and one of the things we see is a continuum of preparedness. So, for example, in 3rd grade, with the support of Red Cross, there's the pillowcase project where 3rd graders can learn if they had to leave their house with a pillowcase, what would they bring with them? In 5th grade, there's a wonderful program called Get Ready 5th Grade, which is a free service. Any school here, if you have a student who's in 5th grade or is going into 5th grade, go talk to your school and learn about how you can bring this great program into your school. There's a new piece of legislation that goes into effect a year from this coming July 1st, AB 1719, that is going to require compression-only CPR as a high school graduation requirement. So that is a huge and important, change in our laws. That's going to take some work. We're working with all the schools to do a pilot program in the coming years, hopefully 1 school in each district, and then the following year it's going to be part of graduating from high school. Another big step that we've taken just in the last year, working with the Marin County Sheriff's Office and the Marin Emergency Radio Authority, the MIRA board, each of our school district offices, each of our 19 school districts now, or maybe not quite all of them, most of them now have a MIRA radio at the district office. So in the event of a regional disaster, earthquake, where our normal communication lines are down, the internet and landlines, we will have a way of communicating our needs and resources and support. As you guys know, schools are identified as some of our primary shelters in our community. So not only do we have the safety and well-being of the students as our priority, but we also understand that we're community resources to help support shelter, care and shelter. There's California Education Code that requires a certain number of fire drills and earthquake drills depending on the age. It's not an ed code yet, but all schools now, I think across the board, are doing lockdown intruder drills once, twice, or 3 times a year. And an example of an important practice procedure is student release, that we want all the schools to practice and understand the importance of having an organized and systematic way of a student release. So if we had a big earthquake, one of the first things parents can do when they're able to is to get to their school to pick up their students. And you see your daughter, your son, and then there's your neighbor's daughter and son say, here, I'll take you too. Well, you can't do that without a system. So just like in the child care setting, we have practices and procedures for student release that we practice and go over every year with our Marin Schools Emergency Preparedness Council. So that gives you a quick overview and that I could talk a day about, but I've tried to squeeze it into a few minutes, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Sure.
Since you said this is going to be part of graduation for students in the high school level, is there another way in terms, because they also have to do 40 hours of community service, is there another way to implement CPR as part of it?
Yeah, so the question is, you know, some schools have graduation requirements of community service, but CPR is the requirement. It's compression-only CPR. So every high school student starting in July of 2019 will need to be trained in compression-only CPR. It's not a full Red Cross certification, but it is compression-only. It's like the sidewalk CPR that we just did, was it last Saturday in the community, but every high school student will have that starting next school year. Yeah.
You might look at inviting high school students to participate in CERT, get more involved in CERT, and get Red Cross trained.
Yeah, so there is one high school in Marin County, I think it's Redwood High School, who right now all the PE teachers are certified Red Cross instructors, and their students get certified in CPR and first aid, and the CPR includes AED. So that's where we want to get to. But to start, it's just learning the basic skill of compression-only CPR. And certainly what we know and believe is that if a student is introduced to emergency preparedness in 3rd grade through the Red Cross Pillowcase Project, and then does Get Ready 5th grade in 5th grade, and then in 7th grade, some of the local fire departments have been teaching compression-only CPR to middle school students, and then they have to do it. We know that the level of participation by high school students in the CERT programs will grow, and you know, students bring their preparedness knowledge and questions home. They go home and say, "Hey, Mom, hey, Dad, where's our emergency water supply?" You know, and that's really, we see the students as a great resource to, you know, take the lead in helping spread overall preparedness in the community. Yeah. All right, thank you so much for the opportunity, you guys.
Thank you. That was the speed dating version of school preparedness. Thank you. I wanted to ask Doug and Ursula and Brent to come back just for a few minutes, just to do some final questions and commentary. One of the things I wanted Brent to share with you, we were talking a little bit, I think on the agenda, we say be prepared to take care of you and your family for 5 to 7 days. One of the reasons being, while Doug's busy getting people from outside of the county to come help you, obviously you need to be prepared to take care of yourself and take care of your family, friends, coworkers, neighbors. But on the bigger picture, thinking of how isolated Marin may be, and I think Brent has an example working in Santa Cruz during Loma Prieta. If you recall, in 1989, what we saw on the TV was the Cypress structure in Oakland being collapsed and the homes in the marina collapsing on their garages underneath the houses called hogs. And I don't know how many days it took before we found out that anything had happened in Santa Cruz, and it was pretty bad.
Well, those of us who worked at the Santa Cruz Sentinel newspaper were doing as much as we could to get the word out that, hey, the epicenter was down here, folks. You know, we didn't have a bridge collapse. We didn't have a marina district on fire. But actually, I was a sports writer at the time, 1989, October 17th, 5:04 p.m. I was at the World Series. And so the sports writers and TV people and everybody who was there to cover the World Series very quickly turned into news reporters because that was an event in itself right there. It was, you had, so many eyeballs around the world, or especially the United States, focused on this ball game. And they suddenly, because the broadcast came back up, you might remember if you were watching, there was the helicopter view of the bridge collapse. There was the Cypress structure shown pancaked, and the Marina District on fire. There was very little information in the getting to the network news that the epicenter was in Santa Cruz County. Nicene Mark State Park, if you know that area at all, and Aptos. I was just down there yesterday, and we. I went back. My quick story was we the Santa Cruz Sentinel news staff did not want to miss a day of publication. There was so much to tell people about how Santa Cruz and Watsonville and the towns in between had been devastated, and we ended up having. I think it was 8 deaths, or it might have been 7 deaths in the first 24 hours, actually in the first few minutes of the quake, and I think that somebody else died the next day. It was devastating, but we ended up making our Santa Cruz Sentinel paper at the Mercury News, which at the time was our arch rival publication, because we had an agreement. The Mercury News would allow us in a disaster situation where we could use their press. I had worked at the Mercury News during my college years at San Jose State, and I knew that computer system, so I became the tech guy roaming around helping the Santa Cruz staff use these computers that they were not used to make a paper on deadline. And the thing that I'll never forget was that the sports editor said, "Where's your story?" About 40 minutes before deadline. I said, I don't know if I have one because I've been just being the tech guy. And he said, well, your story is going across the top. We do have one sports page, and it's going across the top of the page, so you're going to fill that. So I actually won an award for that story. I probably just do a stream of consciousness, what it was like becoming a news reporter for the first time. But anyway, Santa Cruz was hit very hard. Watsonville was hit particularly hard. Watsonville being a community with, I'm not sure what it was at that time as far as the percentage of Spanish speakers, but Spanish language communication was critical back then. In a disaster mode, it was very slow to. There weren't enough people who were authoritative figures who could be trusted sources of information in Spanish. There were a few police officers, there were a few firefighters who spoke Spanish, but that was a moment that they all realized we've got to do a better job with outreach in multiple languages. And to this day, we still have the same issue. It just hasn't been solved yet. But we want to train more people who speak multiple languages to become emergency workers and understand how to do disaster communications.
Thank you. I want to close with Doug and Ursula, but before then, just a couple quick things. One, thank you for filling out your evaluation. That helps us turn in the information that we need to continue bringing you these sessions at no cost. 2, if you want to follow our events, you can always shoot me an email to become part of our mailing list. That's michelle@first5marin.org. But you can also just follow us on Facebook, the Marin Communications Forum. I create events and post information about this every month. And we do meet monthly, except we're taking a vacation in July. Also First 5 Marin. So either of those 2 sites, Marin Communications Forum or First 5 Marin, you'll see the invitations for these events. And we have great subjects coming up. We're going to be talking about tobacco, e-cigarettes, and cannabis in November. We have another session on financial literacy and the earned income tax credit. We're going to be talking about advocacy with school boards, councils, and commissions, and a special event in August, which I'll be announcing soon by email and again on our Facebook page. If you took pictures today and you're sharing them on social media, if you would use the hashtag #ReadyMarin, and that way we can all share. And I just want to close for 2 takeaways. One, if you will please take a look and sign up for Alert Marin. So you want to get your cell phone and your home phone and your office phone on there so you can get texts, emails, and robocalls, right, for when the emergency alerts go out. And the other takeaway is please think about making a couple kits. A small one for your car, something bigger for your home and office. Someone came up with a good idea, like, you know, it can cost a lot to go up and fill this all of a sudden, so at least get it started. But someone mentioned when you're at events where they hand out the granola bars or the water bottles, just take it and then throw that in your kit, and at least you're building it up a little bit. And I just wanted to let Doug and Ursula give you your final emergency reminders.
Okay, I think we covered everything, and there was some redundancy in some of the other folks who talked about wove preparedness in again and again. So we know how important that is to be personally prepared. My message to you as a final reminder is, who is in your life? Who is a neighbor who might looking after? We have this term in emergency at OES in our government language. It's access and functional needs. It used to be called vulnerable populations, special populations. It's all of those people who have some kind of a thing in their lives where they need help with. It's could be 1,000 different things, could be visible to the eye and not. And to raise the awareness around that of who could use your help, whether it's your next door neighbor or some of your friends, within your own family circle, certainly. We have elderly, we have people who become fragile and vulnerable in so many different ways. And that's my takeaway for you. It's not just yourself, because that's the whole reason to be prepared. Those of us who are able-bodied and still kind of with it, and my hearing is starting to go, I think, as I get older, or maybe it's selective hearing, I don't know. But it's all that noise, I think, that caused it to happen, those rock concerts I used to go to. But, you know, that's a disability. It's like, can you say that again on this ear? No, that's really not true. It's actually one of my coworkers who does that. But just a reminder, think of those other people that you involve in your planning and that you help have a plan for and with. Okay? Thank you.
You were at the ball game in '89? I was a patrol deputy down in Marin City at Bridge. I keep hitting the same dang thing. What is that thing? There's a flaw. There's a flaw there. I was working and that day, Bridge and Bridgeway, working Marin City, the 11 beat as we call it, and the power poles came down around us, and the power went out. And then we had very little information coming to us as deputies. Just so you know, when an earthquake hits like that, what we do, our initial thing is what we call a windshield survey. And all the deputies will be tasked, and patrol officers throughout the county will be tasked to go and check various places. One of the places I was asked to check was the Richardson Bay Bridge to make sure it was still there. And I don't know if you know this or not, if you live down there, there was a separation of about 5 inches where one part elevated and the other part stayed. Luckily, it was northbound traffic where it occurred, so it'd be just a little hop as opposed to the opposite direction, which would have been a little pop to your tires had you gone that way. It's going to be confusing. It's going to be chaotic. I mentioned earlier about the limited number of patrol officers we have in the county in total, and if something like this happens, a lot of you are going to be hoping, when is that fire truck coming to my neighborhood, or when is that policeman coming? It may be a long time. So it talks about really what this whole forum has been about today, and that's relationships. Seriously. I hate to tell you, but Marin is probably not high on priority in the government's eyes in regards to getting help here quickly. And the way I feel that, and I offer this, is because when it comes down to when the government disperses money throughout the state for emergency preparedness, communities such as San Francisco, Oakland, South Bay will come first. I know that. I've been told that. So it is going to be some time before we get resources to come here. It will not be surprising that 1 or 2 days later, the police officers you see patrolling your neighborhood after a major event like that, if it happens up here in Northern California, will probably be Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputies and Los Angeles police officers who will be in our community, and that's going to be a shock for a lot of people. By the way, they police different than we do up here. So that'll be a problem by itself. I'm just face the facts. So again, it's all about relationships, and that's what we've been talking about today. I already see a few people, I've heard a few people that I want to meet and talk a little further about how we can develop our relationship even further, because it starts first with family. Something like that happens. Second of all, your neighbors. I hope you have a good neighborhood. I hope you guys are tight. I hope you guys know who each other are, because that's going to be your support for probably the first couple days, unless there's something major happening in your neighborhood. I mean, if your gas lines are broken, hopefully you'll learn how to turn off your gas lines. If your water lines are broken, we've talked about having water and so forth like that. It's going to be very difficult for us to come and knock on your door when something like this happens. It's going to take a little bit of time. So, and then what I've been hearing today about all these different resources that are available to us, some news to me. And did I mention I've been here for a few years, and I want to reach out to some of these organizations and find out how they can benefit me with what my purpose will be in any type of event that we talked about here today. So again, I guess if we're going to end this thing, think about those people who are sitting and standing around you, how they can help you. Take the time now to develop those relationships. Don't wait to the last minute, because it'll be too late. It's not going to happen. And with that, I will leave it with that. I'm going to try not to trip on whatever that is right there.
That's it, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. And since we did videotape, we'll be posting this on a YouTube channel, and I will send you all an email to let you know that location. Thanks very much.